praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. This one going? That's good enough. I'd like to start my testimony by reading in Psalm 98, verses 1 through 4. Sing unto the Lord a new song, for he hath done marvelous things. His right hand and his holy arm hath gotten him the victory. Lord hath made known his salvation, his righteousness hath he opened shrewd in the sight of the heathen. He hath remembered his mercy and his truth towards the house of Israel. All the ends of the earth have seen the salvation of our God. Make a joyful noise unto the Lord, all the earth. Make a loud noise and rejoice and sing praise. Sing unto the Lord with the harp and the voice of a psalm, with trumpets and the sound of cornet. Make a joyful noise before the Lord, the King. So as you probably guess, my testimony has a lot to do with music. Surprise, huh? I grew up in Prairie Gym Church. Some of you know where that was. It's the Mount Union, Trenton, Blacktop, and 218. 170th Street, 218. That's where Prairie Gym sat. And Prairie Gym was one of 4 Methodist circuit churches. Remember the Methodist writers? And they started 4 of them, and those churches were Prairie Gym, of course, and Pleasant Hill, which is a cemetery out there by the airport, and Beulah, which is down Winfield Avenue, was before it burned down last year, and Wesley Chapel, which is still has active services. So my story is so different, and that's the reason why I didn't think it'd be interesting. I grew up in church. I always knew that Jesus was my Savior and died for my sins. And I always believed that. And I do to this day. I remember we would have people come and give a testimony. And I never did quite understand it. They would go something like this. I smoked and I drank a lot and I gambled all the money away. And then I lost my wife and I lost my kids. And then I had to steal to eat. And then I found Jesus. That was a typical story. And I thought, guys, I hope I don't have to go through all that just to find Jesus, because I already found him. So I have always been churched my whole life. Even through the military, even through young child, we had 3 kids. I've always been to church. We attended, like I said, I grew up Methodist, and then when I lived in Littleton, Colorado, we went to a congregational church. And then when we moved up into the mountains in Georgetown, there were 2 churches. There was the Catholic Church and the Presbyterian Church. So we became Presbyterians. And then when we moved back here, when we moved into town, Mary and I decided that we wanted to look for a church in town. And it was interesting because we did a pilgrimage of Mount Pleasant, and we decided to attend every church in Mount Pleasant, which was an eye-opener. Because some of the places are doing something not irreverent, but certainly totally different than what we were used to. And we ended up going to the First Baptist Church one Sunday, and it was kind of an unfortunate situation because Mary's nephew had just died in an auto accident. He was 28, right? 26. And so we had to leave early because his visitation was in Morning Sun, and so we didn't really get a visit with anybody. And I said, I felt pretty comfortable there. I think maybe we should go back and give it a second chance. And then from that second chance, we continued on there. But the difference was in the Baptist church, my grandmother played the piano and organ, and she also taught Sunday school. Right, Judy? Anybody else remember her? Lila Spearman? This was in the old church, the old Baptist church that was where the phone company is right now. That's where the Baptist church was. And I remember attending a lot there because she was also a piano teacher, and her recital was always in that church. Another thing when I grew up in church was we had a pin for perfect attendance. You got the pin, and then you got year 2, and year 3, and year 4, and year 5, 6. And if you missed a Sunday, you were out. So if you went someplace, you had to get a note from that pastor saying that you attended church that Sunday so that you didn't miss out on your pin. I was going to bring it. I forgot. Anyway, I have 10 years on my pin. I'm not so sure that at some point I wasn't more concerned about getting my pin than I was going to church. But you know, when you're young, those things. So, one of the things that I wanted to do when we grew up in Prairie Gym, I sang and I played trumpet. I played most instruments. I played trumpet then, and I would do a trumpet solo and whatever. But I told my mom, I said, I really want to play for church some Sunday. And at that time, they had 3 pianists, and they each did a month, like January, February, March, and then you'd play it, then they would rotate again. And so on one of my mom's months, the very last Sunday of the month, she agreed to let me play. We knew the hymns way ahead of time. Guess what the hymns were? They were God of Our Fathers, Old Rugged Cross, and What a Friend We Have in Jesus. That's what we're singing today. So those are the 3 songs we played, and I wanted to make sure I practiced all month. And practiced it. This has to be just perfect. It has to be beautiful. Well, I played for church, and it went okay. And after church, the other 2 pianists got my mom over in the corner and basically told her, you know, it's just not appropriate what he played. He needs to play the notes only on the page. He doesn't need to add all this. So we would prefer that you not have him do that again. That was my introduction to playing for church. The next thing was I wanted to do piano lessons, and again, my grandmother taught piano. She taught Karen Doubleday her first lesson. But when it came to me, I was the 4th of 4 kids. And we lived on the farm. And my grandmother had decided, I don't know why, but she decided that my 2 brothers and my sister got piano lessons. And when it came to me, she told my father that she wanted paid to give me piano lessons. Well, my father was already, farmers. We were already giving her all of our meat and all of our canned goods and a lot of stuff and help support her. And he just didn't think that was appropriate, that he would have to pay her to give me piano lessons. And then she started into things like, well, he can't play the piano anyway because I have a big palm and short fingers, and she said I can't. He said he won't ever be able to play the piano. So there's no reason to even bother giving him piano lessons. So my 3 siblings got piano lessons, and I didn't. In retrospect, I look back on that, and what they did, was told me I couldn't do something. And if anybody knows my personality, if you tell me I can't do something, I'm probably going to do it. So if you know anything about music, it's about 5% instruction and 95% practice. When I started taking instruments in school, I learned how to read music. I'd already known kind of how to read music, and it wasn't a hard stretch for me to change those notes to the piano. And I just played, and I played, and I played. And that's how I ended up with where I am. The next thing that happened when we were in Colorado, at the Presbyterian Church. There was this lady there, I remember her name so well, Mary Lou Rutherford. She had red hair, and even then she was probably 80. And the Rutherfords had always been in this little town, Georgetown, for years and years. They settled there in the big silver rush that was in Georgetown. Georgetown was called the Silver Queen of the Rockies. And she ran the church, if you know what I mean. Everything was the way she did. One Sunday, the organist and I had bought this new instrument. It looks a lot like that, but it was just strings and horns, and it was fairly new, in the new end of synthesizers. And we worked up a song for church, and it was really kind of rousing, and the organist and me, and we played all this stuff, and when we got done, people applauded. Well, after church, I was accosted by Mary Lou Rutherford. She said, maybe that instrument is okay in a bar, but I don't think it has any place in a church. So I don't want to ever see that thing come in the church. I said, well, Mary Lou, it was developed for a church. That's where it came from. Well, and I do not think that anybody should be applauding in church. I said, I can't stop that. So those are many of the negative things I've gotten about playing music in church, but obviously I can continue playing because I remember reading that verse, Psalm 98, make a joyful noise unto the Lord, and that's what I want to do. I want to make a joyful noise unto the Lord. So I'm going to end with, I think I've forgotten about 20 things I was going to talk about, lucky you. But I'm going to end with something that I really enjoy doing. If you remember over at the other church, do you remember Dale Welcher? And he wrote poetry all the time. And he wanted me to put some stuff to music. And so a couple different times I wrote music for his poetry. And he was really thrilled. And that's one thing I enjoy doing is writing music. I don't write lyrics. If I write lyrics, it sounds like a third grader. But I do write music. So the other day I prepared something for you that I wanted to play and show you what I really, really enjoy doing. And a lot of times when people play verses out of the Bible, they change the words around to fit the music. So in this case, I wanted to make sure that no words were changed. And so you should recognize this right off. And so I made the music fit the words. Makes
continue on with